Welcome. I'm Mike Nye.
And I'm Tarran Merlo from the Hail and Well Met podcasts.
And I'm Telander from the Ostium Network. And welcome to our Tea-cast. While there is tea, there is hope.
Okay, welcome to While There's Tea, There Is Hope. And this is a special one because we're actually all here, as was my plan to do with the first episode that never quite happened. So we've got Tarran. Say hi.
Hello.
And Mike.
Hello.
And me. So all three of us together here, as I'd originally intended to do with every episode, and hasn't quite happened. But it's made it more interesting. So, what are we drinking today?
Well,
where are we drinking?
Mike and I, we're actually in the same room today, which has worked out really well.
Tarran is.
So, I'm kind of...
Yeah.
Hello, Mike's camera.
Around the corner.
So I brought in a sample from my trip down to Dunsborough, which is about a 2.5, 3 hour drive down South Perth. And we went to a tea shop called the Seven Seas. I've got some photos and all that sort of jazz, so I'll post those up. So
it looks like a really cool place, yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool. And the owner spent 45 minutes individually packaging 18 samples, sort of 4 or 5 serves per sample. Spent 45 minutes putting this in together for me. One of them was a sticky chai. So think your normal chai, your ginger base, which is, I think we've talked about before.
Actually, that was my recommended tea last time. I think so. We went into depth, didn't we? Yeah.
There we go. So it's a base of chai with a local honey. So it's been mixed in there and stored in the honey, so it's quite sweet. And we're drinking a black.
But it's still a dried sort of chai leaf thing, is it? Or
it is, yeah. So it's still a dried black tea.
Mm-hmm.
Tarran showed it to me in like the little baggie, and it sort of looks like when they say sticky, they're not kidding, because like the tea is dry, but because they put the local honey in it, it's sort of like it's like if tea was mixed with like a little bit of honey, right? It was like literally sticky, yeah.
It almost looks like a post brew.
Yeah, pretty much.
But drinking it black, it would be nice with milk, with the warmed milk cooked on the stovetop, as it should be. But black steeped has been quite good.
Yeah, it was very, very nice. Very nice.
How about yourself?
So I'm also drinking an Australian tea, the tea to Irish breakfast. So all Aussie
good choice.
And of course it's good. Yeah, all the way from down under.
Probably from India or somewhere else, but...
What do you say, Mike? Isn't it all local? I don't know if it's from America, but...
No idea. I would be upset if it was from America, given the lengths it took to get that tea to you.
Yes, given the pandemic and quarantine and COVID, yes, the delays and the customs and the... No, it's better than on my side of the family over in Europe. They've been trying to send stuff to each other and just nothing's getting through to anywhere.
Yeah.
There's stuff will come back in 2 months and it's a birthday card that never arrived or late Christmas card or whatever and stuff. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on. So I tell them, well, send it via Australia to me and I will get it.
Yeah, send it to me and then I'll send it to you. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a little history bit from the main book I'm using right now for our tea cast, which is A Thirst for Empire, How Tea Shaped the Modern World by Erica Rappaport. I thought this was an interesting little bit about how we know kind of a lot about the history of tea and the details about tea, mainly because a lot of tea's history, it's quite known in part because growers, manufacturers, and retailers, they wrote accounts of the commodities past to shape markets, and they continue to do so today. So they really kept kind of a detailed record of everything they were doing, with whether it was, the retailers or the manufacturers or the actual tea pickers too and growers and stuff. So it was kind of interesting to know how much info has been collected over the centuries for tea and why we know so much about it.
That is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I quite enjoy going down the rabbit hole of what history is there. I mean, I'm a history major, so unfortunately my approach to tackling topics is usually to dive pretty deeply into the histories of them. That's sort of where my head goes to.
I feel like we should come up with because there's the wiki hole, or whatever that you fall down. There's got to be something with tea, call it the tea bush or something.
I get tossed overboard. Does that work?
Yeah.
Is that a tea party? Boston Tea Party joke?
Yes.
I was going to ask about that. I could go to Wikipedia, obviously, and sort of look it up and do research. Now, I'm not a history major, and I struggle with any sort of history, like, when did I get married, what's my anniversary date, etc.
Really
recent
basic history.
I won't tell you, but...
But I was going to ask, because you're, obviously American, so you probably get taught about all that stuff in school.
Well, I'm not American, so I didn't.
Oh, well, you live there.
I know a bit about it, I suppose. I think it was all to do with... Well, actually, you'll have to wait to episode 127 of the podcast that we do, where we'll be talking all about... I'm sure we will cover it in detail at some point. But as far as I know, it was all to do with taxes, because you might know Americans have problems with taxes and paying them, but they still want everything to run and be there for them and give them everything, but not pay taxes for them, so they don't really know how to pay for them. But I believe it's tied in with, well, you're probably wikiing it now, aren't you, Mike? Yeah, that look.
No, I'm not.
On purpose.
I can.
But I think it's to do with a tax that the Brits put on the tea, and it kind of pushed them over, plus tied in with the whole wanting to be separate and independent and all that, Okay. But it was a rebellion against that with the extra tea tax. And I think I have come across a bit of that. Because we haven't got to the part where I'm in the book right now, but it's all in my notes somewhere, but I seem to remember a lot of stuff as tea became more and more popular. The taxes on the tea and all around the world and how it affected different groups and stuff led to a lot of outcry and rebellion and stuff. So I think that's mainly what the Boston Tea Party whole thing was about. Yeah,
ultimately that's the crux of it.
Not to be confused with the conservative Tea Party that came about, I don't know when it came about, early 2000s something. That's this horrible conservative group that were terrible people and still are if they're around. I don't know why they called them tea. Probably because they were rebelling, that's why. I'm sure taxes are in there somewhere. Anyway, so moving on to our little next section of history from the Pete's website that I found that gives a kind of somewhat in-depth, detailed history of tea. So now we're moving on to popularization in the Far East. Whatever the legend, tracing tea's original roots proves difficult. It is probable that the tea plant originated in regions around southwest China, Tibet, and northern India. Chinese traders may have traveled throughout these regions often and encountered people chewing tea leaves for medicinal purposes. But it was not until the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907, often referred to as the classic age of tea, did consumption become widespread. A government-imposed tea tax further evidences the beverage's growing popularity, and it was at this time that tea was recognized as China's national drink. During the Tang Dynasty, a Buddhist monk, Lu Yu, 733 to 804, composed the Cha Ching, or Classic of Tea treatise. He described types of tea, its uses, as well as the preparation and benefits of drinking it. More importantly, he imbued the writings with a spiritual aesthetic that reflected Buddhist, Taoist, and Confucian religious thoughts of the time. These teachings were centered around a traditional tea ceremony which served as a metaphor for expressing the harmony and simplicity that not only ordered, but also streamed throughout the entire universe. The centuries that followed became known as the Romantic Age of Tea, led by the Sung Dynasty, 960 to 1280. Poetry and artistic references to tea abounded. During this period, Chinese culture significantly influenced and impacted art, politics, and religion in the Far East. So there you have it. I kind of like that this is a whole piece of history of tea, and we think of, the 1800s is the big time of tea, and this is like 1,000 years before, more than that, and it's like the big age of tea for China.
I wonder how tea's changed over the years. Like, have you ever read about bananas and how basically the bananas we eat today are nothing like the bananas that we were eating even like 100 years ago?
I think I might have a lot to do with kind of gene strains and how they were focusing on getting the best size of everything. A lot of that is true for, I think, fruits and vegetables and stuff.
Well, I think it's extremely prevalent with bananas. Like, you know, when you get those candy bananas and they have a very specific taste, it's not really like a banana, right? But apparently back when those candies were like invented, that was
what the
type taste,
plastic
right?
weird taste.
Yeah, within reason. So I wonder whether or not tea has been like deliberately evolved, like bred different strains of tea and breeding certain tea plants in order for optimum yield and optimum flavor. Whether or not the flavor has changed or the plant has changed over time.
Well, we know for certain. We know for certain.
It's a German podcast, isn't
it? We definitely know that the Chinese Camellia sinensis isn't what is grown in China. Isn't what is grown in India.
India, right?
Because that one is the Assam hybrid tea. So it's a hybridization of the Camellia to grow in the hotter climates. So like the black teas that we have in most Western culture, most of your sort of English breakfasts and your Earl Greys and those sort of things, they're all based on Indian, Assam-based leaves. And it's really only when you go looking for a Chinese green tea, or it doesn't have to be green, but a Chinese grown plant is where you're getting the more traditional.
Right. Yeah, that we'll probably cover, I don't think in this episode, but in future episodes as I get further with the book. It was definitely as tea was starting to become known around the world in the 17 to 1800s, and so it was really just the tea from China. And then because Britain wanted to capitalize on it, they stole some leaves and basically started growing it in a colony in India, up by, I think it's by the Ganges area, sort of thing, northeast, and then kind of worked on a huge campaign of saying China tea is bad, Indian tea is the best, and shockingly, as part of their ruling of the world, yes, they wanted to promote their own tea and make as much money as they could off of it and all that.
On that one, Alex, I did make a purchase through Book Depository, which got shipped pretty quickly despite COVID and the problems there, titled For All the Tea in China by Sarah Rose. Its tagline is Espionage, Empire, and the Secret Formula for the World's Favorite Drink. And it goes into a history of the 1800s and onwards. Right. So not sort of the original histories, but the engagement of Western culture into China and what all that meant for the market. So I'll be doing some reading there and hopefully provide some, hopefully some more context.
Yeah, well, it'll be fun, I think, because I think both our books are covering similar periods. It'll be interesting to see if there's different details we bring to it, or we're just going to be copying each other, or or you'll be saying, no, that's not what happened in my book, it says.
We've got this. I've also found, just for some reference points, with this whole pandemic going on, there are a lot of online libraries that have opened up their doors to everybody.
Free ones, yeah.
So definitely now is the time to be able to do free research from primary sources.
Perfect.
Or secondary sources, but still. But
quoting primaries or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can mention them. Yeah. Just make sure you take note what they are, and we can mention them here when you do quote them.
Yes.
Yeah, what I think with the tea thing is it's been, I don't think it's probably changed that much necessarily. There's probably new and different kinds of tea that's come from China as they've tried different things and doing them different ways. But I think as being, a very traditional society and very much how revered tea was so early on, they've probably kept very much to keeping how specific their tea is done and what areas it's coming from and how it's being made and all that stuff. Probably leads into a good thing here with Tarran explaining the distance between tea and tisane, as we need to do on every episode. I think just to be clear of what is real tea and what isn't.
I was going to jump in to the different types and speaking to the how it's changed. We think of black tea as being the standard sort of Western
tea with a capital T, basically.
But black tea was a thing in China. It wasn't an exclusive Western piece, and it's all down to how it's prepared. So you've got white tea, which is wilted and unoxidized. Yellow, which is unwilted, unoxidized, but allowed to yellow, so it's left out and yellowed. Green, which is unwilted and unoxidized, but not yellowed. So that
is this at a table? Is there a table for this? I think we had to have this.
There is
a table. Good.
Yeah,
maybe you can share it. So
and it kind of it goes through the different types and pieces that you get there. Which and black tea is, excuse the pronunciation, but it's Hongcha, which is more known as a red tea in China. And again, the colouring that we get out of it is red, so fair enough.
Right, yeah, it's that coppery, reddish, orangey, depending how strong it is.
Black tea in China is a fermented, composted green tea that is actually black, pronounced badly haicha, I think.
We could probably use Google Translate to get these pronunciations a bit more
accurate, and less offensive, probably.
Wow. We're trying our best, people.
You're doing your best.
Yeah.
Obviously, the cha part is the tea, right?
Yeah. So all of that is still from the same plant. Doesn't matter if it's a Assam or a traditional Chinese plant. I think the black is probably the easiest to prepare and transport. It's wilted, sometimes crushed, it's fully oxidized, and it's sort of easier to transport around.
And oxidized would be dried out, right?
Yes, yeah. Of course, all of that is drastically different to the tisane, which is, as we know, contains no actual tea.
Not real tea. Not part of that. What was the Latin nomenclature?
Put
you on the spot.
Yep, I've forgotten that.
But it's like one of the guys at work drinks chamomile tea, which isn't really tea either. I mean, I guess that'd be a tisane as well.
Yeah, it is. So all of the herbals, all of the flavoured and all that sort of jazz, if it doesn't have a tea leaf in it, it's not a tea, it's a tisane.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I guess you can have all this kind of tea all over China then, as long as it's using this actual original leaf from it, and they can do it in different ways. And obviously, I'm trying to think of how you get as much of a variety in how it comes out. Obviously, there's these various preparations of how you do it, which results in the kind of tea it is. But I wonder what further things you can do, like obviously it has an effect on where you grow it in altitude and climate and things like that, of what sort of flavor you get out of it and things like that.
According to one of the teas I picked up in Dunsborough, they advertised on it what the moon cycle was.
Wow.
So I assume that has some bearing on it?
Well, yeah. I mean, depending on where you're growing it, if you're growing it close to the ocean with tides and different things going on, yeah. And when you pick it too, I wonder. And I mean, I'm trying to equate it a bit with wine, because that's the other thing I'm thinking of that's as widespread. And problem is, I'm not a wine drinker, so I have no clue really to comment.
Well, it's the same as coffee beans.
Yeah,
individual estates growing different types of beans get a very different flavour to it.
Yeah,
And
I know a bit about
actually-
coffee because from my bookstore days, I actually learned. We had a coffee place in there, and actually, as a manager, got trained into it all because I wanted to know. But also, it was interesting. But also knowing, like the African coffee has a more acid flavor to it, sharper flavor, whereas your I think it's the Indonesian and like South American are not as acidic sort of thing. And just it varies with where it's done and stuff like that, yeah. But then you also have blends where they combine various areas too to make something new as well. Obviously, there's probably that that's applying to tea.
And I think it does. I haven't done anywhere near enough research to provide that with any real meaning.
Well, we'll talk about it in future episodes then as we delve deeper and learn more. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
So let's give list a couple of favorite teas of ours. What are some of your favorite teas? Tarran, go first.
Okay, yeah. Another sample, not from Dunsborough. This one is from the. Why don't I not remember the name of the company that I bought it from? Oh, from Origin Tea. Sorry, so Eastern States of Australia. It's and I did promise myself I'd look up how to pronounce this, so apologies, but it's an orange picoe?
Pico?
I've always said pico, but I don't know.
I've heard pico, yeah.
Pico, there we go.
Yeah.
That is very nice. I have had that. 100% recommend.
Yes.
And it's a tea, right? Not a tisane, or is it?
It is a tea.
It's a tea.
Okay.
So it's a black tea from Sri Lanka. It's graded a OP1. So that is my understanding is it's the very tip of the plant as they pick it, which gives it a very different taste to the rest.
So, so the higher the number, the further down the leaf of the plant it is, or something?
I believe so, yes. Yeah. So I need to
how
look
high
up more of the
what
gradings.
the scale goes to?
No idea.
Interesting.
No, definitely a research piece to keep going to.
Interesting, yeah. 'Cause I even had no idea about that. That's the whole point of this, to educate us and the listeners on the complexities of tea. I had no idea about that. So just the leaf tips.
Yeah. So I steeped it for 5 minutes in about 95-degree water. Black, no milk or sweetener. And it was subtle. It was sort of almost sweet, but it didn't have any of that bitter bite or aftertaste that you get with...
Yeah.
You know, you sort of buy a generic off-the-shelf kind of tea bag.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't have that... I need to go have a
I
glass
think
of
it was
water
like
afterwards.
artificial. Yeah, I think if it was artificial or whatever, it doesn't taste quite right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've definitely put that on my list of teas to drink black by itself when I'm in the mood for something a bit
Especially having it on its
nicer.
own like that and just pure kind of, yeah. And the orange wasn't too strong?
No.
No, when they say orange, I think they're more referring to the
Color of the box. No.
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with like orange, like citrus orange. Right?
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to figure it out at the moment, and basically,
What's the colour?
yeah, I think it's the color. I think it's the color, right? Like
The color of the
'cause
actual tea when you put it in water.
Yeah, because I too was like, why do they call it orange pico? Here, look, here's Tarran's phone.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm having a look, and the Wikipedia site basically says, as you go up the leaf, it gets more, I don't know, pico, I guess. So, orange pico, like Tarran said, is like right up the tip of the plant. So, I don't know, maybe it's orange in color. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't want to
It is green.
pico a hole in your explanation here, but
Oh, very good.
what does pico actually mean? Can you find that out?
It says,
What's the etymology?
yeah, I do not know. I
A
will
high
find
quality black tea made from young leaves.
What is pico?
So that's grown after only a certain amount of time, presumably, because they're young. You know.
Yeah,
Okay,
pico
here's a very quick...
It's just a name for tea. A high quality black tea.
Oh, it's just pico.
Made from young leaves, they say.
Because I definitely, now that I think about it, whenever I usually see orange and pico linked together whenever it's said. And I've always thought, I'm not going to like that because it's orange. But now I know I should not do that. Next time I'll try it.
There's other picos. There's pico souchong, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which I didn't even realize was a pico. But there you go. And flowery orange pico, FOP for short.
So the orange Pico, it was in the 1600s. The company that brought teas to Europe, and the best of the black teas was reserved for the royal family, which we know we've talked about in the past. When it was introduced to the public, that leaf became known as the orange Pico because it was associated with royalty. So if we remember, the country that brought tea in is the Dutch.
I was about to say
the Dutch.
I was about to say that. Yeah, and I actually remember that up in the book too. Yeah.
So the grading system with the term orange Pico.
So the orange just means bloody good tea.
Yeah,
really, and not orange flavor at all.
Yeah, good enough for the Dutch Queen.
So the tip of the leaf equivalent to the cream of the crop.
I think that's why British people like PG tips. Actually, I have no idea whether they like it or not. That's completely unfounded. I just know
like
that
PG tips.
A good British quality tip.
I do like PG tips. It's just usually Costco over here, so I don't get as much.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. So it's PG tips as in tip of the leaf, if that is true, or they just call it that to be.
Yeah, it might just be a clever marketing ploy.
Yeah, exactly.
It says here the term picot, or occasionally orange picot, describes the unopened terminal leaf bud tips in tea flushes.
Because they're young, so they're unopened.
Yeah. A bud and a leaf, or a bud and two leaves, are used to describe.
So if this was like animal meat, it'd be horrible. But because it's tea leaves, it's okay.
Yeah, this is the veal of tea.
Yes.
Except you can feel good drinking it.
I wonder when we're going to get to the pate of tea.
Yeah. Oh, goodness me. Yeah, that's 100% correct what Tarran was saying. It says here as well. Yeah, the red orange is unrelated to the tea's flavour or colour. It is to do with the Dutch House of Orange Nassau, now the royal family. There you go.
And basically, it was Holland, I think Portugal was in there too, bringing the teas back. And then England's like, hey, we need to get in on this and charge it in sort of thing, and then tried to take it all over.
So did you say yours was OP1, was it, Tarran?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can go beyond that.
Yeah.
Apparently there's these acronyms are fantastic. So I'm going to run you through this. This is going to make some good content. So it's broken up. The grades are broken up into whole leaf grades and broken leaf grades. Okay. So it starts with OP, which is orange picot, right?
Oh, yeah.
The main grade. Okay. Then there's OP1, which is more delicate than OP. Slightly different shaped leaves. I'm going to leave out the technical detail because it'll get pretty boring. Then there's OPA, which is like OP, but higher flavour. Then there's Orange Picot Superior, which is OPS. Flowery Orange Picot, which is FOP. Flowery Orange Picot 1, so FOP 1, which is even better than that. Then there's Golden Flowery Orange Picot, so there's GFOP. Tippy Golden Flowery Orange Picot, which is TG-FOP.
And I thought these were just going to be a sequential 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3.
No way. It goes all the way up to like Superior Finest Tippy Golden Flowery Orange Picot, which is SFTG-FOP. There you go. I had no idea.
Wow.
And then
so there's no OP1 Canoti then.
Oh, is there? Let's have a look.
Canned oat tea?
That's a whole marketing plan that they haven't explored yet if they need to.
Yeah, they've missed that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very disappointed.
Wow. There's so many terms.
I'm sure, who is it? Kenneth Branagh would be happy to do a photo shoot and slap him on the box.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So apparently every one of those acronyms can also have extra special at the end of it as well. So there you go.
ES for short.
So what we're after, the cream of the crop is the TG FOP Extra Special.
So that's the opposite to what Tarran had.
Well, it's a few rungs up the spectrum, put it that way.
I thought yours sounded very fancy, but apparently
I don't know whether us mere mortals can get that. Yeah.
My OP1 was the best I've ever had, and now I've realised it's so much better.
It's like, what is it? It's a chocolate and cheese, I think, in Switzerland, where what they send to the rest of the world is like level 3 and below or whatever, but the top few tiers only stays in the country. So if you actually want the best of them, you actually have to go there to enjoy it.
That's like Australian beer. You know, we send all of our shitty beer, like Foster's, to the other countries, and we keep all the good stuff.
Mike, let's have a favorite tea from you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about an interesting tea that I initially tried when I was a lot younger because my mother bought it because when I was a kid, I thought it had a funny name. I wasn't being racist, I was just extremely young. So the tea in question is called Lapsang Souchong, and it is a Chinese tea. And what they do with it is they smoke it. They smoke it over pine chips usually. So it has a very smoky flavour. Now, if you like your peated whiskies, and I very much do, I have a collection of them just over here on my whiskey table.
Wow. This is at work.
Yeah, this is at work. Well, you gotta. Do you have a whiskey?
Do you have a whiskey table at home too?
Yeah. Well, I have a shelf. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
I really need to come over.
Yeah, you do. Well, we're Australians. We're all pissheads here. Anyway. So anyway,
because you're all former criminals, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You got to do something to pass the time. We're so far away from everything.
Yeah.
The flavour of the tea is not dissimilar to a peated whiskey. So maybe if you feel like you want that flavour, but you don't necessarily want to have a whiskey at 10 in the morning, one of these teas might be a good go.
Which you obviously do, though, since you've got a.
Well, it's usually like if we have customers in for meetings and it's the afternoon, I think it's polite to offer them a beer
after they sign the contract, then
or a gin and tonic. No, this is before. That's how you get them.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. No.
Can we cut that?
Yeah,
that's a trademark move. You can't share that special secret.
No, we're just friendly. That's all. There's nothing else to it. Although sadly, we're finding these days people come to the office and we're not allowed to even offer them coffee due to probity and being transparent and all that sort of thing, which sucks. But anyway, because I like to have a drink with my colleagues and co-workers. Anyway,
you could probably offer a tea, but
this is true.
That reminds me of a mail carrier. He's retired now. The stories I hear from the old days, and
I bet.
One of his customers on the start of his route would do shots of vodka with him in the morning. Wow. One was like, they did like, one more, and he'd do like 2 or 3 shots of vodka, then stop. And we're like, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
My barbershop does that. It's quite good. I recommend it. I don't want to get him in trouble, so I don't know whether.
So, do you know how the tea's actually prepared? Like we were saying, that is that actually when it's the dried leaves are smoked, or how they?
Yeah, it says here. They don't say when it's smoked. They say it's distinct from other types of tea, as the leaves are traditionally smoke dried over pine wood fires. So smoke dried, I guess. So
while they're still after being picked or whatever, and then when they're part of the drying, because it's all these different techniques, which are kind of fascinating to see how they come out with it. So how did you have the tea? Just plain or?
Just black. The smoky flavour doesn't really go well with milk. I've tried it with milk, and it's better. It's better just black, and maybe diluted just a little bit, or not steeped for as long as I steeped it for, because the flavour is intense. Something I just learned when we were talking about Tarran's tea and going through the Picot stuff is the names of the leaves as you go back from the bud. So you have the flowery orange Picot, which is right at the bud, orange Picot, Picot Souchong, and Souchong, right? So Souchong refers to the fifth leaf back from the bud, which I didn't know until about 5 minutes ago. So
this
there
is
you go.
cool. It's all great stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm really learning.
Just tea, but yes, it's so much more. It's much better than bloody wine. That's just a grape you pick and squash in a barrel.
So technically, right, it shouldn't be as expensive as like orange Picot, which is like, up closer to the bud, right? Because this is just the, I don't want to say the dreg leaves, but it says here it was created as a way to create a marketable product from the less desirable leaves. So there you go.
So I wonder what makes them less desirable.
But it tastes pretty good to me, but what do I know? I'm just a pleb.
I mean, I wonder if it's lower, because if it's lower down, maybe there's more of it, so that's the abundant leaf, whereas the higher one, especially being younger, is the more in demand.
Yeah, for sure.
I wonder what the straight taste difference is if you got a branch and tasted the tip versus...
You make your three kinds, your black, your yellow, or something like that, and then do it with each different leaf.
I'll tell you what, this is an experiment that we could 100% do. Like if we buy, because we'd only be up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of tea, right? So it's not going to be super expensive. It's probably going to be about $100 each, right? So there's flowery orange Picot, which is right at the top. Orange Picot, Picot Souchong, Congo, I'm butchering these pronunciations, and Bohea. So anyway, they're the grades of leaf. So we could buy teas made up of all of those leaves and try it out.
Maybe after we get the first sponsor.
Yeah, maybe. T2? T2?
Yeah, we need to get in touch with them.
Get in touch. Yeah.
I have been looking at sourcing a Camellia sinensis to plant.
To grow, yeah? Do you reckon it would grow in our climate?
It'd be better growing an Assam. The hybrid, but where I'm thinking of putting it, it does get a lot of shade, and it would be getting a lot of water. The problem is trying to get them into WA. We have some pretty strict import laws around plants.
Yeah, we do.
I'm trying.
So you've got the Chinese tea plant, which is that specific one, and then the Assam, you said, is a hybrid. So obviously it's part of that, and then something totally new.
Yes. What have they bred it with? I think they used the stock of another camellia plant.
Now, was that something that was native to India, or
I'm not sure if it was a native to India plant or if it was just a more hardy, heat-resistant
for
camellia.
Grown in a different area, right?
Yeah, they've then grown and grafted the Chinese camellia on top to it. I need to look into it.
Yeah,
camellias are pretty common over here. Like we have them as a normal plant.
I've got one by the front door.
Yeah, I've got them in my garden as well. Yeah.
Apparently, they're not good.
Oh.
I did that level of research. They are not a substitute for tea.
Okay, Mike, what are your tidbits?
Well, on the plant thing as well, there's chrysanthemum tea. My mother has a ton of chrysanthemums, so we could definitely try that at some point. Anyway, yeah. So I was going to say that back onto the Lapsang Souchong thing. It was drunk by Winston Churchill. They say famously, although I didn't know this. So
I mean, did he do everything famously? He just didn't know at the time.
Well, he did. Yeah. And Tarran especially is going to like this one. When told that his Captain Picard character from Star Trek: The Next Generation would drink a lot of tea, Sir Patrick Stewart himself originally suggested he drink Lapsang Souchong, but the producers were afraid the audience would know what it was, so it was changed to Earl Grey.
So he really didn't like Earl Grey at all.
There you go.
No, we can't use this foreign tea.
Yeah, we've got to
so he would say, what?
Sounds more American.
Tea, Lapsang Souchong, hot.
Yeah.
Quite the same ring to it, does it?
No, it doesn't, does it?
I'm sure it would have if we had gone with it, but...
Yeah, seriously. We all would have... I mean, think of the sales, the popularity, and... Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Would have saved the studio money buying the Souchong instead of the Earl Grey. Given that it's, the more... Well, I'm assuming so, because it's like so far down away from the tip of the plant, right?
But he wasn't really drinking Earl Grey tea.
No.
It was an empty cup or something.
Coloured water, yeah.
Usually it's watered down Coke, I think.
Have you ever watched the TV show Alex Trailer Park Boys?
Yeah, but I know of it. Well, somewhat.
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
I don't know whether it's famous, probably more infamous, but one of the characters on there, Jim Leahy, who was the park supervisor, played by a guy, John Dunshaw, who sadly has passed away. But I watched him do some interviews about the behind the scenes, and he is famously a teetotaler, never drinks alcohol. Yet his character is a complete drunk. And they asked, what are you drinking? And he said, I just fill the bottles up with tea. It's the same color. I like to drink it. So there you go. So
teetotaler does have a link with tea. And it's in the book, which we'll get to in some future episode when I reach those other notes. But yeah, there's a link with tea.
Oh, cool. There you go.
I don't really have any tea to recommend because I've always got boring tea. So we're going to move on to... So it seems like you guys prefer just plain tea. You don't do milk or sugar really or anything. Is that true?
Depends what I'm drinking. I will have milk if I'm having like a breakfast tea, like a English breakfast, Irish breakfast, Sydney breakfast, insert breakfast here. And I have the French Earl Grey with a little bit of milk. So it depends on the tea. Like if I'm having a green tea, obviously I won't have milk with it. If I was having the Lapsang Souchong, I wouldn't have milk with it. I don't know. I guess it's a personal preference thing.
Yeah, I've never really... I guess growing up, it was always with milk and sugar because that's what your parents made you.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So so milk and sugar. That milk is just as big of a thing over in Australia then, as it is in England.
Yeah.
I
mean, given that most of quite a lot of Australians can trace their origin back to criminals from the UK.
Yeah.
it's tradition to do the milk and sugar, but. No, I think more recent drinking has definitely had me going black. No milk, no sugars, no sweeteners. I do add a bit of honey to the chai, and I do add milk to a chai typically. But even Earl Grey, I know Mike, you said you had a bit of milk to it.
Yeah.
But. I tend to
but only that specific one. I find other Earl Grey doesn't suit milk. I think there's just something about that one. It pairs well with milk. I'm sure there's
which one's
somebody, the French Earl Grey, the T2 one.
The T2 one, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know, it's super floral and like without
it
milk,
is, yeah.
it's almost too much. But with the milk, it just softens those flavors that I find overpowering.
Dulls them a little bit, yeah.
Nice combination.
The other thing I find is depending on where you are, it's sometimes hard to get milk.
Yeah, that's true. Like we're in the office today, and there's no milk here, so we're going black.
But most of my Tasane drinking, you don't.
Right.
Yeah,
I
you don't.
I remember you said earlier that you might have got to the Tasane stuff, especially because it was trying to help you to sleep and stuff like that too, which was more of a recent thing. But before that, you were still sticking to mainly no milk or sugar for the most part, right?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of milk. I definitely haven't added sugar since a young child. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I find I used to always add it because like my grandmother and my father would always make it with sugar in for us when we were kids, like you were saying, Tarran. And I've noticed as well now when my daughter stays over at Mum and Dad's house, Dad makes her a cup of tea and puts sugar in, even though I say like please don't put sugar in it. But but once I started drinking it without sugar, I used to have sugar in everything like coffee. And then I remember somebody back when coffee was starting to get popular here, somebody said, "Oh, you don't put sugar in coffee. Like, try a decent quality coffee without sugar and see if you like it." And I did, and ever since then, I haven't put it in anything.
That is true. Because I remember when we were doing for that coffee training that I was talking about earlier, and getting actually trying different blends to see how different they were. It was just we didn't do anything with it. You had a little sample cup and tried each one, and then you actually put it on the middle part of your tongue, and let it just kind of sit there to try to pick up the notes and stuff.
I mean, on adding milk to teas that probably shouldn't, and a little bit more anecdotal and story.
You put a ton of milk in your chamomile, don't you?
No. I think I might have to my very first cup, and it went down the drain pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Peppermint tea.
So interesting.
Oh, I can't do it.
Oh, I like peppermint tea.
I can't do it, man.
You don't like it?
Don't.
I think again, that's like definitely one of those where it needs to be good, because if it has that kind of artificial bitter taste at the end or whatever, it can just ruin it. I think.
Yeah.
I'm funny with peppermint and stuff. Like mint, like Bernadette is all about, my wife Bernadette. She's all about like mint chocolate and mint ice cream, and I'm just like, for me, it just tastes like toothpaste. I don't know what it is. Like, you know how some people can't have you would call it cilantro, like coriander, right?
Yeah.
Because they say, it tastes like metal or it tastes like soap. I don't know. I must have something like that, but with mint, because it doesn't work for me at all. Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Interesting.
I
do have some association. It depends how strong it is, I think, but I do have some association with it being tea, and then also my mother always had chewing gum that was always mint. And I think I associate a little bit being in the car and being a little bit car sick and smelling mint chewing gum. Yeah. But I do like the smell of... I mean, I don't really have peppermint tea, if at all, but my wife does, and I do like the smell of it. And if I find a bush somewhere, I'll grab some, just to, I enjoy the fresh smell of it. Like when the lawnmower's gone off nearby and cut it all down, it's wonderful in the air.
Yeah. You get the smell to it.
And it's usually with eucalyptus as a kind of blend for, soothing scent and stuff and things like that.
Yeah. Well, that's what we found we were using it for. When Amy, my wife, it's
just make it
calming.
clear, everyone, we're all married, so we're taken.
I mainly clarified because people who don't know us might be listening going like, who's this Bernadette woman? They're introducing a new character very late in the story.
A celebrity to be met later. Maybe she'll be on the show talking about tea at some point. Yeah?
Maybe she loves tea. She'd be right for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tarran.
No, it's a good calming tea for sort of an upset stomach and can help with heartburn or other things like that. So I've got 3 kids now. With each of them, Amy had this chronic heartburn.
Oh, right.
And so when she was pregnant, your options for heartburn medication are pretty limited.
Yeah.
You've got 3 and none of them really work very well. So trial and error, we found one of the few things that would actually help was a hot cup of peppermint
tea.
Sane.
Yeah, you know what? I've got memories of Bernadette doing exactly the same thing when she was pregnant as well.
Yeah, she'd feel like she's having a heart attack, that level of sort of thing. And a quick cup of peppermint Sane.
Would soothe you.
A few minutes later, it had died down.
It's meant to be calming as well as helping you digestively too. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd probably class that as a favourite tea, less for myself and more for the effects it had on my wife.
But also it's one thing you smelled a lot, so you're kind of used to it and appreciating it in that way too.
Yeah.
Now, see, this is the sort of thing where I wondered if they've ever joined up a mint to Sane with black tea or something and stuck it together and see what that would make, or how that would come out, as a tea and things like that.
I think tea do that.
Probably.
And I think
they mix everything else.
See, because I don't really drink it, I didn't even think to send you some, Alex, but I should have.
I'm not that huge on peppermint tea, so this is also why we're doing this too, is because it's helping me broaden my tea perspective.
Too. Yeah.
We did get some tea and peppermint and lavender tea from the lavender farm down in Margaret River. Nice big box for Amy. She's tried it. It's quite nice. The lavender's sort of subtle, but it's good.
I've tried that. I know Earl Grey and lavender gets paired a lot in different things. I've never really tried it that much. Yeah, and even Earl Grey lavender ice cream, I think, is one thing I've seen somewhere too.
Oh,
yeah,
that sounds all right.
Yeah,
I could go some of that.
Because they're both kind of perfumey, but they work well together. So now we're going to get into the a little more from the book about our reflection period, where it's a little bit where we're trying to start, where it reflects on the time in the history of tea of what was going on and allows us to kind of look back on it and see why it kind of is the way it is, and us looking from the future where things are a lot better, why things were the way they were, and kind of critiquing in some ways. So from the book here, A.E. Duchesne, who is a publicist for promoting tea, contended that the energy and business capacity of our British planters in India, not Chinese farmers, had transformed the luxury of the rich into the everyday drink of the poor. Duchesne thus argued that British imperialism enabled mass consumption and spread civilization. In truth, Chinese farmers and international merchant community had cultivated the Chinese tea the Victorians so appreciated, and it was not until very late in the 19th century that most Britons drank or even knew about the empire's tea. In Duchesne's interpretation, tea justified imperialism. Critics of empire have made the same point and noted how, instead of being a diplomat easing relationships between people and nations, tea was a thief or pirate appropriating Eastern treasures for the benefit of the West.
Oh,
that was a bit like that. Though your book, isn't it, Tarran?
Yeah.
Your subheading. Yeah, so it's one of those things where we have all this wonderful tea, but at the cost and suffering of so many others and so many cultures. And I like to say, but we don't have that now, but we still have the same thing going on even in 2020.
Yep.
And obviously, saying that it made imperialism worth it can never be true, I feel. But you also look at how would tea be different then if it hadn't had imperialism as a running machine to spread it all over, Would tea be as widespread? Would we have more just Chinese tea possibly? Or would it be more just localized to Asia and when people wouldn't be drinking? Because coffee was the big drink before tea that everyone was drinking. So maybe coffee would still be the number one and not many people would be drinking tea.
Well, I don't know. I think it's just to the point on coffee. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this and it was just my upbringing, but coffee didn't really seem to be a popular drink in Australia when I was a kid. I think it's only in the last few maybe decade where coffee has really become trendy. You get like when I was a kid, if you went to somebody's house for coffee, you were getting Nescafe Instant, like Blend 43, right? And at a restaurant, or a
that's definitely insane.
Yeah, like if you ordered a coffee, it was like, do you want black or white? That was it. If you when I was a kid, if you went to a restaurant and said, can I have a long macchiato, they'd look at you like, what? Like they would have no idea what you're talking about, right? So it's only like in the past maybe decade or so where there's been a real, what do you call it? Like a surge of coffee popularity and coffee shops opening up that know and serve very different types of coffee, single origin coffee and all that sort of stuff. So I always feel like tea has always been popular here, maybe because it was a British thing. I'm not sure. Like we've got Billy Tea, which is from first settlers type thing, but there's no like Billy Coffee or anything like that. So it's always been. And
again, because of location, hard to get to it all that. I do know with my reading I've done some Napoleonic era historical fiction reading and stuff like that, where on the that was like the what's his name, Patrick O'Brien, the Jack Aubrey series, Master and Commander, and all those ones, all fun stuff. But there it was, you had your grog, but you also had coffee. Like the captain always had coffee all the time. It wasn't really tea. Coffee was an easy thing to transport and stuff like that. And I think, again, because of the time period and stuff, tea came later. So 1700s going to the 1800s, it was just coffee everywhere, which I do cover a bit in the book too, seen the book. But it wasn't until later, and again with the British imperialism of growing the tea in China, in India, and then spreading it everywhere, that made it a big thing. The Indian teas didn't really make it in Britain until the 1880s, which was, and they said actually it was 50 years after they'd actually started growing it in India to try to get it to be anything comparable to the Chinese tea. Before that, it was all coffee.
That's really interesting. I don't really feel like I'm intelligent enough to make interesting conversation based on that. But
I'm just pulling from different things that I've in my reading and stuff like that I've come across and putting it all together. Yeah, it's the history major me too. Yeah, history minor, but I've always been fascinated by all that stuff. Do you have any other teas you want to recommend? A particular one for the episode or anything, or are you all wrecked out?
I reckon people should try Lapsang Souchong. Just by a little bit, in case you don't like it. How
long did you steep it for? Or how long should you steep it for?
I can't remember, but I do remember it being extremely strong. Like, I haven't had any for maybe about a year or so. I tried to dig some up. I thought I had some, and when I was sending you that care package, I thought, I find this really interesting. I tore the cupboard to shreds, but I could not find it. So I either drank it all or Bernadette got rid of it when she cleaned the cupboard out. But yeah, so probably not as long as I did. Maybe steep it for a little bit. Take the if you've got.
Let's have some concrete numbers here. What, couple minutes?
All right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to buy some, and I will have it ready for the next time we record, and we can. I'll give you the exact details.
Practical experiment. Yes. Yep. Do a 2-minute, a 5-minute, and a 25-minute.
Oh, 25 minutes.
and video when you try each one. Okay. You'll need a spoon if you like yogurt or something. That's how I like my tea, chewy. Tarran,
I'm going to throw another. I'll throw another recommendation in. It's by a company called Tea Leaves. Not technically a tea, it is a tisane.
Brilliant name.
What do they sell?
Coffee.
Yeah. And beer, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, they could almost make beer with the ingredients in this one. It's called the Sandman.
Oh.
So it's a tisane by Tea Leaves, which is in the Dandenong Ranges in Victoria, COVID Central. It's a
only right now
at the moment, yeah. It's a sleep aid tisane, and it's got a mixture of chamomile, cornflower blossom, hops, lemongrass, passion flower, rose petals, and spearmint leaves. Nice blend. Helps quell a bit of a queasy tummy.
Can you really taste the hops in it?
No, not really.
Okay.
No, thankfully. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting there craving a beer instead.
Yeah, well, that too.
It's a nice way to spend sort of an hour or so before bedtime winding down.
Right.
I find, though, with the mix of ingredients, because you get sort of different
it sounds like a lot. Like each time, however you do it and stuff, you get a different...
Yeah, you've got to make sure you get an even spread.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does tend to get a bit minty if you don't.
Now, is this, I don't want to assume, but is this loose leaf too, or is this in a tea bag?
It is a loose leaf, yeah.
Yeah.
My only negative is I tend to make a pot that's around 400 to 500 ml, about half a litre.
Too much for one sitting.
Yeah, well, I drink it all.
Yeah.
But it means around the 2 a.m. mark I find...
yeah. That's my problem.
That awkward sort of should I, shouldn't I?
That's the problem with having tea, as I do at night, depending on how much I have. I have various sized mugs depending on what time I want to wake up to have to go to the toilet.
Exactly.
And on the weekend, it's like, screw it, I'm drinking it on a work night.
I'll just wake up.
Yeah.
But no, Sandman tisane, very nice. Very
Sandman or Sandman?
Sandman, sorry.
Sandman. To put you to sleep. Yeah. You can do it while reading the graphic novel.
Exactly.
Or listening to the podcast. My one I'm recommending is the Shan Valley Green Tea, which was the one that was originally when we traced it from...
is that the Myanmar one?
Yeah, the Myanmar one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That you sent me. That was the freshly picked from where it was grown and stuff. And then we were doing our researches to see, because I enjoyed that tea so much, and I only had a limited supply.
It's pretty good. I keep forgetting to bring some in, Tarran. I have some for you when I divvied it up.
Okay.
I got a bag. Alex got a bag, and
so we did research and looked all around, and then you started finding some places that did it. And every time I looked them up, I found that they had a distributor in America for some reason. So I was able to get this it came all the way from New Jersey. And what I really like is that the leaves are like almost like sticks.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really kind of thick and like it looks like a handful of twigs sort of thing you throw there, which I think makes it a little different than your usual, like your loose leaf or grey, where you've got more defined leaves, or even like the I was noticing with the Irish breakfast and the English breakfast too, they're almost like crumbs or a grain to it compared to like this one, which is a much bigger leaf. It's
So
really pretty.
has it been shredded at all, or is it just the whole leaves?
Well, it's not. I don't know. But I mean, they're pretty small. I don't know what size the leaf is. Maybe it's just the tips. I don't know if it tells me what level.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, yes, and it was this one was really nice. Still wasn't quite as perfect as the original, the OG from Myanmar that you gave me. But it was still very nice, very light. Again, I mean, a green tea, I wouldn't necessarily add anything to it, but it was just great to just steep it in for 3. Even when I did it a little strong, it still wasn't that bitter that you might get sometimes when you do a tea that's not as good, that's too strong and it gets really bitter from it. This still tasted really good. And then one day I even did it to steeped it in the T2 whatever steeper thingy that you said, Mike, originally for me.
The tea maker.
The tea maker, yeah. And then just dumped it in over a glass of ice, so it would turn into iced green tea right away, and that was delicious too.
Oh, that would have been good.
Very easy to do, and it's just ready.
Did I tell you I found the original bag that green tea came in? Did I send you that?
Oh, that's cool.
So the thing is, I can't translate it, but I wonder if maybe Google Translate can, and then we can find out the source.
Or you can call them.
Yeah, the tea is grown on that mountain behind the logo, according to my brother who lived over there before COVID happened. So, yeah. Cool. But apparently, it was grown in a pretty an area that used to be used for growing drugs, and the community is trying to get themselves out of.
Well, that's what we were seeing when we were kind of looking up different places where we could get that tea over here, and we saw. I don't think this one was. You found one that was former American military who'd been serving. Actually, there'd been people who'd like fought in different or worked in different areas around the world where there'd been oppressed people and stuff like that. And so their whole goal in starting this tea company, which I'll mention I put in the show notes for this episode, had been to help these, communities that had suffered and now could come back and grow and do well with these teas. Yeah. This was a similar thing too, where there you go.
Nice.
Good pun. We've got to have a pun. No, we've got to keep the puns going. This might still be called this episode where we can get it to start running. We're just going to be, where is it? All Quiet on the Western Tea. Because we're talking about the influence of tea around the world and stuff. Yeah. So that was my recommendation, which was delicious. I'm going to end with a little bit I learned on the BBC Inside Science podcast yesterday when I listened to it. They were doing a whole thing. There's a whole citizen science project they were doing on composting. And they actually had a whole bunch, thousands of people in England doing it to see stuff where it says, it's biodegradable. Just throw it in there, no compost, and you'll be fine. If it actually does it or not. So they've been doing it now since February, and they started looking at all the results and stuff. And shockingly, most of the stuff doesn't actually biodegrade. You actually have to. It's not home biodegradable. It has to be an industrial biodegrading type of thing. Yeah. But what was interesting in there was a little bit where it was actually I think it was the producer who was going through her compost, and she found a tea bag. And they had an expert on here who learns about that stuff, and they were talking about tea bags, and he said, you would have thought tea bags would rot away pretty quick, it's just paper and leaves and stuff. And the guy started explaining, well, yes and no, because originally tea bags were made with paper, and you would have got that. But then when everyone was squashing the tea bag against the side of the mug, as you do to squash the tea out of it, it would break the bag, and that would lead to loss in sales and people switching it. So then they started putting a little kind of plastic in the tea bag to make it hold stronger, and that's why the tea bag is still there 26 weeks later. But now they're professing that they're doing a biodegradable version or whatever, which they're going to test out and stuff. But I thought that was a nice little anecdote about tea bags that I never really would have known about and just heard regularly.
Drink loose leaf tea, people.
Well, it costs more.
I've seen some that are home biodegradable, that
Yeah.
they specifically put on the packaging outside for that reason. But yeah.
I did get with my, I should have hit that downstairs, my tea subscription from Simple Loose Leaf Teas. With each one, because you get 4 little samples, and then they send these little like mesh bags with them that are like, I can't remember. I looked at it. They did tell me what they were made of and stuff, but they're like a little tea bag you would use them for, but they're a little more earth friendly, you know.
Yeah.
But I never really use them because I use a sieve or whatever, a strainer and stuff. So I wouldn't use them. So then,
I've got a quote from my book. It's actually one of the recommendations. The newspapers and that too. I haven't read the book, so I can't really comment on it and its historical accuracy. But this quote and recommendation is from the Daily Mail. And I'm going to reserve full judgment until I've read the book. But
well, presumably it's a good quote since it's on the book.
Yeah, I kind of... So, it reads, "This book reveals our cuppa wouldn't exist if it wasn't for an amazing Victorian, armed only with a rusty pistol and a pigtail, who stole the secret of tea from under the nose of China's ruthless warlords."
Yeah.
Now, in the words of Wikipedia, I'm going to say citation needed.
Yeah. So that is from the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
As per the jacket book back page of the book For All the Tea in China by Sarah Rose. So as I said, I know this book focuses on that time period of the taking of the tea plant from China into India. But I'm sensing that this book might have a particular slant.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, unless that's just the Daily Mail being the Daily Mail, but
could well be.
It'd be interesting to see. Yeah, because again, that was covered in here in this bit, and it was very much thief is in there, used commonly, and intentionally stole from China to try to start it in India and make money off of it. So it wasn't like they stole it and then
a positive version of Robert Fortune. Yeah, there's a few other quotes sort of calling him a swashbuckling pirate.
When did the book come out?
2009? Hang on, let me just get the first published date. Yeah, 2009. So we're not talking about a mid-90s book.
Yeah.
It should be somewhat more enlightened.
Yeah, it should be.
So I'm interested to see the take they put on this.
Yeah. It may not be to your taste.
No.
Oh, dear.
Okay. Any last things for the episode? I think we're ready to call it.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Mike, any leafy words of wisdom?
No.
Thank you for listening to While There Is Tea, There Is Hope. This episode featured myself, Tarran Merlo, Alex C. Telander, and Mike Nye. It was produced by Tarran Merlo. Details of the music featured in this episode can be found in the show notes. And you can find out more about the show at our new website, www.t-cast.com. Head over there for episodes, transcripts, and a few pictures. Our reviews and recommendations are coming along, and they'll be up there soon too. We hope you can join us for our next episode. Thanks for listening, and continue to have a tea-rific time.